Welcome back to Creative Days with Sue. I'm Sue. Today we're tackling a fun and creative project, a birthday card for someone whose special day falls on Valentine's Day. What better way to celebrate than with a cake-themed card? Let's dive in and get started. For this card, I just pulled items from my stash. No need for special stamps or dies. Think of this design like baking a cake. The base is your recipe, and the decorations are all about your personal touch. By the way, all the measurements will be in the description below. And if you enjoy this idea, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss my next card making adventure. All right, let's start with the cake insert. I'm using a piece of pattern paper. It's one-sided, which works perfectly. I've cut it to 5 by 8 inches and folded it in half with the pattern on the inside of the fold. Now here's where it gets a little bit technical, but don't worry, I'll walk you through it. With the folded edge on my right, since I'm right-handed, I'm making some lines, 1 inch, 2 inches, 2 3/4 inches, and 3 1/4 inches from the bottom. Now, using the grid lines on my mat to ensure that I'm straight, I'm going to draw a line on the 2 lowest marks that are 1 1/2 inches long from the fold. The third line up, I'm drawing a line that's 1 inch long. And at the top mark, I'm drawing a line that's 3/4 of an inch long. Depending upon your paper cutter, you could cut them with that. Just line up the drawn line with the cutting line and use the side ruler to ensure the cut is the correct length. Now I tried lining up the blade at the desired length and then cutting upwards, and I tried cutting down to the desired length, but mine wasn't as accurate as I wanted, so I just cut them to length with scissors. Using a ruler, crease the folds towards the open end. Again, use the grid lines to ensure a straight crease. As I carefully open the card, I'm going to push these folds into the center and line up the edges of the paper and fold it in half. Then I'll reinforce the folds with a bone folder. And just like that, the base of our cake insert is ready. For the frosting layer, I could have used colored cardstock scraps. But if you don't have any colored scraps, here's another way to get the colors that you want. Use your ink pads to drag along white cardstock to color the cardstock. Now some inks work more smoothly than others, but any ink pad will work, and the ink doesn't really need to be perfectly uniform in color to look good. Once I have them colored, I'm going to use the Riley & Company drip die to cut out 3 colored swatches. And while I'm at it with my Sizzix Big Shot, I'm also going to cut out 4 candles. Now, if you don't have a candle die, you can always just cut thin rectangles with an oval top and decorate it. I found my candle die in a holiday die set. Look around, you may have something that's going to work for you. To color the candles, I'm just going to add some stripes and dots to give them a little bit of detail. For the flame, I'm going to use orange and yellow, and then I'm going to emboss the flame with holographic embossing powder. Now this part was tricky with the heat gun, but I knew when the embossing powder melted because it sparkled a bit right before it melted. Now let's work on the card base, front panel, and the pattern paper insert. All the measurements again for cutting are in the description box below. To prepare these before I start decorating the cake, I'm going to ink blend the edges. I will be adding brown ink to the pink pattern paper that I'm using for the insert and the front panel. I'm using a blending brush to add just a hint of color on the edges of the interior insert and the panel. On the white card base, I'm going to ink the inside of the card and the front panel with pink ink. I first tried the blending brush, but I wanted a more saturated color, so I started using the ink pad directly on the edges of the paper. The front panel and the insert will both be covered, so they don't need to be neat. Now it's time to decorate the cake. Let's start by adding some details to the cake. First is to add color to the layers. I chose a shimmery brown paper because chocolate cake's my favorite, and I felt that the shimmery paper conveyed that. Before I glued them, I lined them up with the slits that I cut earlier to ensure that they're the correct length. Since I'm dealing with such small cuts that aren't always as accurate as I wish, double checking is always a good idea. Once they're cut to length, fold each layer in half and glue in place. Don't worry if the piece isn't the exact height of the layer. Just make sure that the bottom lines up with the cake layer. The icing will cover the top. Once the glue is set, again, fold the card to set the creases in this new layer. Just like I did with the cake color layer, I will line up the frosting layer and cut it to size. Then I'm going to glue it in place. To finish the cake off, place a small dot of glue on the front of the candles and add them to the back of the top layer. Adding the candles at this point gives the frosting layers time to dry and set in place before, again, you're going to fold the card to crease the new layers. The inside insert's complete. To add the insert to the card base, I'm using both glue and double-sided tape. I want the tape to hold the piece in position while the glue dries to secure it. I have added tape along the outside edge of the card base and the top and the bottom. Then I use glue for the detailed edge around the cake layers and the corners of the insert. I will secure the right panel first by closing the card. Next, I will apply the glue and the tape to the front panel and secure it while closing the card. By doing it this way, I ensure that the card will open smoothly when the insert is attached. Press firmly once both pieces are attached. The Happy Birthday stamp set by scrapbook.com has the perfect saying, "Let's eat cake." I will stamp this in brown ink, clean the stamp, and then stamp with embossing ink and cover it with clear embossing powder. This will give a similar shimmer as the inside cake layers. I should have used tweezers to hold the greeting when I was doing this, but I was careful and avoided the heat of the heat gun. I have cut out 3 red hearts and 2 silver ones, along with 5 black strings from scrapbook.com's mini heart balloon die set. I also tied a small red bow and grabbed some colored rhinestones to add sparkle for the decorations on the front of the card. To start, I want to position the balloons toward the top of the panel. I'll glue down the first 3 and then add their paper strings. Then I'll add the next 2 balloons and their strings. Where the strings come together, I'm going to add a large dot of glue to hold my ribbon bow. For the greeting, I added foam tape to the pattern paper before attaching it to the brown base. Then I added that below the ribbon bow. Now I'm adding a variety of colored rhinestones to give the front some sparkle. The final step is to add the front panel to the card base. With tape and glue to secure it in place, the card is done. As I look at the card, I can think of a variety of occasions for the card, from a birthday card, like what I need it for, to a wedding card, or a Valentine's Day card, or even a get well card. I mean, when does cake not cheer you up or make you feel better? Swap up the colors and the inside message, and you have a variety of uses for this cute card. Comment below what occasion you will use this card for. Dig through your stash and create your own cake card. I hope you enjoyed this sweet treat of a card today. And that's all till our next creative day.